Welcome back. This is Dr. Lori. There's one more thing that is really helpful to think about in terms of overall the big picture with study design, and that is what could possibly go wrong. And so I like to frame this in terms of the research process, and if you recall, that involves asking a question, designing the study, collecting the data, then analyzing the data, interpreting and sharing it, and then that often prompts new questions. So we're really talking a lot about study design here over on the right hand side. So here we're designing a study. We're thinking about what variables we're collecting, how do we collect our group of individuals that we're going to be asking those questions of, all of the things related to the study design. Specifically, we're thinking about study design for descriptive statistics. And as opposed to inferential statistics where you have p-values and odds ratios and correlations and all that kind of stuff. So we're really focused in here on the descriptive statistics piece. We're describing. We're not trying to infer or prove causation or anything like that. So we're describing, we're painting a picture. With this whole study design, probably the primary thing that can go wrong is that it does not match up with the interpretation that somebody draws from the data. If we talk about our study design and we say this was a cross-sectional study, and then in our interpretation we talk about how X causes Y, that is an incorrect interpretation to go along with that particular study design. Remember up here a little bit farther, since we're collecting all of that information all at the same time, it's like we're taking a slice through time. We want to know about all the exposures, diseases, predictors, outcomes, independent, dependent, X, Y variables. We can't talk about something causing something else because we've collected it at the same time. Let me give you an example. So if we were to do a cross-sectional study of let's just say general patients in a clinic, and we wanted to compare cancer patients to non-cancer patients, and we asked them this question. So this morning, did you take any multivitamins? We already know the answer to this research question, but I'll tell you. The cancer patients are much more likely to be taking multivitamins than other patients who come in for other things, like they have a cold, they need a flu shot, they have some other thing going on. Cancer patients, that morning, they come for their doctor visit. Doctor says, so did you take any kind of multivitamin or individual vitamin, not multivitamin, whatever? Did you take any vitamins today? Cancer patients are much more likely to be taking vitamins. Well, do vitamins cause cancer? The answer to that, for some of them, we have some good longitudinal studies. But with a cross-sectional design, like what you see here, we have our exposure, what we're thinking of as our exposure, our taking our vitamins, and what we're thinking of as our outcome or our disease, which is the cancer. We're measuring them at the very same time. What happens is that when somebody is diagnosed, they were diagnosed with cancer, like let's say way back here. During this time period of kind of following forward, that person adopts the habit of taking more multivitamins. And so it's not that they were taking the multivitamin and then lots and lots and lots of time passed with enough time to go by in order for the cancer cells to have the early changes and then for it to develop into a full cancer case. That's called reverse cause and effect. So really what ended up happening in that case is being diagnosed with cancer causes somebody to take multivitamins. And so we have to be extremely careful when we are thinking about our study design, if we have a cross-sectional study design, our interpretation cannot even imply a causal sort of a relationship there. And that's tricky because even the words that we have, exposure, disease, predictor, outcome, independent and dependent are the most neutral of all of those pairs. But predictor implies that that thing is going to cause that outcome, or exposure and disease. So we have to be really careful with the kinds of conclusions that we're drawing in that particular study. So just be super aware of that. I would say that's probably one of the biggest things that could possibly go wrong when we're thinking about study design, is that we did not interpret it in light of the key, either the defining feature or the limitations or the strengths of that particular study design. It could also be that the way we collect our data or how we analyze it, or even related to the question, really need to be also tailored, finessed to the specific study design. So just be really careful that all of those things are really painting the same picture, that we're not doing something out of the ordinary that really is out of line for that particular, whichever study design we choose. Thank you for joining me, and that concludes this video.